welcome to the UKTI Theatre, and my name's Nick Evans. I am Technical Director at ExtraMile Communications. We're a company that specialises in multilingual international marketing online with websites, email marketing, social media, and the like. And so we're going to talk today about best practice online for export. This topic really is a topic that should be dear to the hearts of anybody who wants to hit the online space and look at getting new customers from countries far and wide. So let's just have a little look at what we're going to talk about. Our agenda really is international marketing generally, something about good practice with websites, specifically then about e-commerce, something about SEO, and then general online best practice, a few sort of general tips. So let's breeze along. So we'll touch on international, and we'll talk about multilingual, and then just look at best practice generally. So when somebody phones you from Bulgaria, or sends you a message, or sends you an email, who are you going to call? Well, not Ghostbusters, that's sure. Having the back office infrastructure is necessary if you want to make a living out of an international market. And it's as important as the front face, because the two things join. The front face of your marketing delivers you contacts and leads, so you need to be able to deal with them. And your international communications aren't just about translation, they're about localization too. And that means making the products and making the messages fit the marketplace that you're addressing socially and culturally, and so you're not upsetting people. It's not just about language. It's also about being very organized with what you do, because it's complex when you work in more than one country. So, you know, some questions I think worth asking. Have you identified, for example, the countries that you might be wanting to work in? And what languages are involved? Are there local issues that you need to take care of? And if there are, what are you going to do about them? And what if you don't know whether there are local issues? It's that thing about not knowing what you don't know. So, in order to make this all work, you really need to have a strategy. You can't just say tomorrow morning, oh, do you know, I think we'll hit Germany with our products and we'll suddenly go online in Germany. Because going multilingual and hitting new territories overseas is part of a strategy that involves all sorts of things. It's your website, yes, but email, social media, all the other media that you use to address your partners in other countries, distributors, sellers, manufacturers, customers, prospects, all of those. Think of it as a whole. So this strategic thinking, in your export strategy, how many countries do you expect to address? Thinking about the map, how many, you know, not just Europe, but far beyond China, we were learning earlier, is a massive market. So what do you expect to address? What resources and tools are you going to need in order to help you go into other countries? For example, are you going to need people to translate? Assuming that you're going to a country where they're not speaking English, you've got to think about language differences. You have to think about culture differences as well. If you're just going to America or to Australia, obviously you have to think about currency and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, what resources and tools do you need? Have you got translators? Have you got localizers? Have you got feet on the ground in the country? I was saying in my previous presentation that if you want to keep your costs down, having good partners who know your business can help you do things like translation, things like localization. And if you want to call on the big guns to get the translations done technically, you need to have deep pockets, because it's particularly if you've got a complex site. And then, what are the most important priorities for your step outside the UK? What are you going to put first? Are you going to go full out with all of your products, or are you going to take a particular group of successful products that are the keystone of your business and just start with those and see how it goes? If you've done your research, as the previous speaker was talking about, then you'll know whether your market is ready for your products. So understanding how you're going to prioritize is quite important. You also need to think about the hurdles that you're going to have to jump, because there will be quite a few. What are the barriers to you going online? What are the barriers to you addressing new markets? Now, they'll be different for every business that's in this place, so consider those. You also need, I'm afraid, to think about money, because if you're going multilingual, if you're going into those international markets, you need to have set aside budget. And really, the budget will depend on the scale of your ambition. So consider what you're doing. Again, this is part of your strategy, considering how you're going to grow it, and then allocate budget to achieve your ends. So, for example, setting up your delivery network, or setting up your website, or getting involved with partners. And really, maybe this one ought to be the first one. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because it sounded like a good idea over a pint in the pub the other night? Or are you doing it because it's a part of your business growth strategy, and you've really thought this through in terms of what's involved and what you're going to commit? And then think about your time scale, because the time scale is governed by things like, how long is it going to take you to get together a multilingual website that is going to be in the target languages that you want to address? And while we're talking about websites, those of you who are passing by or sitting here earlier will have seen this before. I use this slide on every presentation. If you've got a good slide, you might as well use it, mightn't you? The website is the hub of your marketing. Everything you do should point into the website. Don't think of it as a separate entity. Think of it as the focus of every bit of your marketing. So if, for example, you're doing advertising, pay-per-click and banner ads and that sort of thing, they're pointing into the website. That's obvious. Search engines as well, search engine optimization, that's all about pointing into the website, getting people to find you online and then get in there. Less obvious is things like word of mouth and networking. When you meet people in an environment like this and you hand them your business card, what you're actually saying is, get in contact with me, visit my website, see what I do. I mean, my business card has got a QR code on, so people can just zap it with their phones and it goes straight to the website. Just a quick route. And offline media. You know, if you've got advertising on the back of a bus or in magazines or on TV or radio, you need your website address in there. And this is true multilingually and obviously just in your UK site. And if you're a commodity that people search for, I always give the example of pizza. If you want pizza here and you want to find the nearest place to buy pizza, you open Google on your phone and you type pizza. And Google will tell you where the nearest pizza shop is. It's as simple as that. Now, that sort of context search is absolutely pivotal to fast-moving goods and consumer goods, maybe less so to people in the marketplaces that are here. And then you've got social media. The number of businesses I see that do great social media, but they, they don't put links to their website. They do nice things about products they've got. Where's the link? Where's the link to that product online? Where's the link to the blog post about the wonderful things that they're doing? Social media is interactive, it's two-way, and it's about getting people to share. And email marketing, the same. Again, driving people to your website with key messages, because when you do email marketing, you don't want people to read the newsletter or the email, you want them to click. You don't tell them the whole story, you get them to click. All of this generates leads for your sales. And that's the whole purpose. Point everything into the website, and everything then generates those leads. And if your website isn't doing that, then your website's not working properly. And if you take that and you multiply it, because you are doing multilingual website, then it becomes even more important to get this right, because you've got to drive traffic to the pages. So let's just talk a little bit about website best practice for a moment. So first of all, you need to think in terms of planning your website. Now, you might not need a multilingual website if you're only talking to a small network of distributors who speak English. So if you're going through other resellers in different countries, then you probably don't need a multilingual website. But if you are going to go direct to consumers, then you need one that speaks to people in a language that they'll understand. And the more distant the country and the more complex the language, the more challenges you'll have in addressing that. So you need to think about translation. You also need to make search engine optimization work for you in all the languages that you address, regardless of whether it's in English or not. So it's important that if you have a website that's in English for the UK, that you actually have an American version if you're addressing the US, and an Australian version if you're addressing Australia, because they're different markets, they have different contexts, and if you think about, are all my products available in all of those countries? They might not be. Or if there are regional variations, you're going to have pricing differences. You'll need a multilingual component, even though you're staying in English. So, what's the priority for your website? Is it language or is it country? Now, the thing with this is you need to lead with language. So if the geography isn't important, so if you create a French website, will it matter whether people from France, from Belgian France, so a Belgian French speaking from Wallonia, or from French West Africa come? Will all those people be able to use that website? If the answer's no, if that's your intention, then you need to think about doing by country if there are specifics for each territory. So you need to have a by country website. Now, one of the challenges is having a multilingual website. You can do one or two things. You can have multiple language websites, or you can have a multilingual website. What's the difference? Multiple language websites are having, say you're going to go into Italy, and so you create a duplicate version of your website and you translate it into Italian. That's great as far as it goes, because you'll put it on an Italian domain and you put that live. When you make a change on your English language website, you're going to have to make that same change on your Italian website. So you add a new category of products here, you're going to have to add a new category of products here. If you then go into Germany as well, you've got twice that problem. Add another couple of countries and you've got 3, 4, 5 times that problem. And the answer is to have a multilingual website. And a multilingual website is a single website that has different layers of language. So you start with a base layer of English, and then you add translation layers as and when pages come live. So show you what I mean. If you imagine a page on your website, we call it the corporate page, the home page, maybe. It might be the home page, could be a product page. It's in English, and if you've no translation layers, it doesn't matter whether you go in Bulgaria, Sweden, Norway, Italy, wherever it is, you will see English because you've not added a translation layer. If, however, you add in a translated page for Italy, say, then when you go in through the Italian part of the website, you'll see the Italian translation. Take it away again and you'll see the English. What this means is that when you are in a situation where you're adding a new product, you put it on in English, it's instantly available in all your countries and all your languages. It'll only be in English there, but it's there. And then you can look in the back end and find all the pages you haven't translated yet. You get the translations, you put them in place, and then those languages will all have the translated version. Sounds simple, it isn't, it's complex. Let's talk a bit about e-commerce for a moment. There's realities that you need to address if you're going to go into e-commerce for other countries than the UK. If you're already doing e-commerce, you'll know what your challenges are already. Put that into a context of having to deal with those challenges in another language, and you'll know that you'll need to think about fulfillment, packaging, returns, complaints, delivery overseas, queries, damage, fraud, payments, VAT, discounts, special deals, bulk orders. You've got to think about those in French, in Italian, in Bulgarian, in Chinese, for heaven's sake. So all of these are things that you're going to have to consider, and I'm sure if you're considering doing export, then you'll have thought of those. But if you haven't, start thinking now. They're part of your strategy. And what are your turnover and profit expectations for this? Bear in mind, it needs a business plan. It's not just about an extension to your existing business. So what's your business plan? What's your turnover, profit expectations? Have you got a growth plan, basically? And how are you going to do this? How are you going to address it? Consider, for example, the back-end system. What back-end system are you going to use to control the stocks and sales? And think also about search engine optimization on your shop in all languages. This isn't behaving. I love it when the screen goes blank like that. It's always a bit of a challenge. I'll talk anyway. Think about the search engine optimization on your shop in all the language that you're going to address. Think about your range of products, range of sizes, colors and designs. Are they all going to be available in all the countries? Oh, there are things coming up. Think also about product photography and whether they need contextualizing. You know, those of you in the greeting cards industry, you've got a job on your hands, haven't you? Because you can't use your English photos. If you're going to do greetings cards for other countries, then you're going to have to have the translated versions. Think about full product descriptions, prices, discounts. I've no idea what's going on here, so I'm hoping it's something interesting, probably more interesting than what I'm saying. And fulfillment and delivery and shipping overseas. Oh yeah, I see what's happening. Do you think it'll keep going? So yes, that was all about the full product descriptions. Fulfillment particularly, that's a big one. And then obviously your shipping as well overseas. If you're Amazon, then obviously you've got it sorted already. So shipping strategy and the pricing for shipping. And bear in mind, you've got currency variations as well, which can cause you an awful lot of different difficulties. So let's think about priorities for a moment. Your content for your website needs to be very, very simple because it's got to translate. So steer free of jargon, really important. Clear content, clear navigation, pricing, product relationships, all of that's really important. And instructions for the customer as well for when they're getting in touch with you. And keep your information above the fold. So above the fold is the important thing. It's a print term, but yeah, the key information needs to stay at the top. So when you're translating, try and ensure that that happens. And you need good branding and good design. You know, these guys do it really well. Very simple, very clear, good photography. It needs to be responsive as well so that it works just as well on these things as it does on a computer. Very important to keep it responsive. You need reporting so that it's easy for you to see what's happening, to see which territories are working, and for it to be easy for you to manage. And don't forget, another key element is the legals, the T's and C's, and the and getting in touch with, keeping in touch with how the money's moving in all of those countries. So all of these things add a level of complexity. And one of the things that you're going to have to think about is the platform that will fulfill your requirements. And that can be multilingual if required. So if you need to go multilingual, these two, for example, will do multilingual really, really well. There are others. These happen to be the ones we use. You need also to start thinking in terms of designing your website so that it's going to work well multilingually, because you've got challenges when you're going into that context. You need to think about your navigation, how that's going to work. So simple navigation, that's easy. How is it going to work? Is it going to just be a straight translation, or are there going to be elements that are dependent on the country that you're in? So translating the menus, that's easy. It's whether there are country variations. So all of that context, all of that content, getting that all working well, helps you lead into the process where you go through the stages of website development, the approvals, the design, the templating. See all these approvals at each stage. The test category of products, all the things that you do before you go live, not with a multilingual site, you're going live with an English website, and then you're adding the multilingual component on the top. So what are the challenges? The challenges are when customer wants 10 of one item and 5 shipped to one address and 5 shipped to another. I don't need to tell you this if you're already in e-commerce. If there's the shipping discounts would apply, and how are those going to work? How are they going to work in all the locations that you're going to do it in? And then there's things like you've got lots of visitors buying to look at your products, but few people buy. You're getting people dropping out. Why is it happening? Are you able to find out? Is someone undercutting you? Is your transaction system working? Are you actually having people drop out because your website isn't operating, or is it simply your website doesn't look sufficiently appealing? So let's just talk a little bit about search engine optimization very quickly. You can't use a .co.uk website and expect people in France, Italy, Spain, China, wherever, to find your website, because Google will treat it as a UK website. So you need to have a generic top-level domain like .com, or if you're just addressing Europe, .eu, or you need to buy the domains in different countries. And for some countries, you can't buy the domain unless you are in the country. So, for example, if you want to buy a .fr for France domain, then you need to have someone buy it for you in France. And these domains are important in helping guiding Google to your website. You need to set up geo-targeting. It's a technique that tells Google which pages are focusing on which countries, and where specific content is going to be pointed. There's another tag called an hreflang, which tells Google what the language is. You need to have localized content, and that needs to be optimized so that it's hitting the keywords in each of the languages you're addressing. Your Google optimization for your UK site does not work in any other country. So think about that. It will work in English language countries, but not any other. And there's things like user IP detection, so helping people get to the right page in your website so that when they open your website, it opens in their language. Really important. You don't want them to be in the UK site and then have to navigate to their own language. So that's a little bit about SEO. But generally, general good practice online, things like translation. You get translation right, not just good. That's the priority. So using the right terminology in the right way and with due respect to the recipient. Are you upsetting people by the tone in which you address them? If you remember your French lessons at school, you'll know that addressing people as tu, when you should be addressing them as vous, can be very insulting. So you need to consider whether your context is in the right form, in terms of politeness. And culturally, don't offend your reader. Think about things that you're saying in your website that might either offend them, put them off. You know, things to do with sports teams, be really careful. You know, you can divide a country in half just by mentioning the wrong football team. And on your website, will everything be available? Is it all going to be there? You really need to know whether all your stock is available. And if it isn't, you should be taking those things out of stock so that in those particular countries. Think about currency. Currency is a real problem for multilingual contexts. The value of the euro fluctuates. You've got different VAT rates in different countries. All of those things need to be considered in your multilingual website. And think about conventions as well. Conventions about something as simple as France, for example, uses a comma for a decimal point and a dot as a separator, whereas we use it the other way around. That can be very confusing if you get it wrong. It just says, you're not French. Same context applies for all other countries. Think about the legals as well. The legals are really important because you can upset people, you can upset the authorities. For example, in Germany and in Belgium, you can't offer a free gift. So, you know, buy 2 of these and get 1 free. That's illegal in Germany and Belgium. So what you have to do is say, buy 2 of these and get 1 of these for €1 or for 1 cent. And then think about also the language. Don't baffle your reader with idioms and references to literature and things that work well in English but don't work in other languages. The famous example that I always use is this Apple mail, which was for Valentine's, truly, madly, deeply. It worked brilliantly in English. It was a lovely mail, very successful. Hopeless in any other language because the film, Truly, Madly, Deeply, wasn't called that anywhere else. In Spain, it was called Un Fantasma Enamorat, and in Germany it was called Wie verrückt und aus tiefstem Herzen. So, you know, it doesn't quite trip off the tongue quite the same way. So, I'm running out of time here. Am I allowed another couple of minutes? Oh, good. Okay. So, why not just use English? So, there's a very good reason, because people, the further south and east you go, will not speak English. You might think they speak English in Spain and Italy, but that's just the waiters in the restaurants you go to. Everybody else, actually, normal people don't, and particularly if you're looking at consumers. Why not use things like Google Translate? Well, there's a good reason. We all like Garfield cartoons, don't we? Well, Google Translate translated this from English into Chinese, and then we put it back in again to translate it from Chinese back into English. You can see the effect. It's gibberish. Doesn't make any sense at all. If there's anything slightly technical in your content, Google Translate will not translate it successfully, or it'll make a good try at it, but it's unlikely to do it properly. So I'm just going to move on a little more rapidly here to a final bit, which is about collecting data. Now, when you're collecting data, the whole idea here is that, sorry, there we go. The whole idea with collecting data is that you want to have people's name and their contact details. And we normally use things like a form, first name, last name. And that's fine for some people. However, let's take some examples. We call this lady Björk. Her name is made up of her given name, her father's name, and the ending daughter of. That's okay. It'll work with our form. Now he might be a bit more of a problem, because we've got family name, generational name, and given name. Not quite sure what we'd put in our form for that. Now this lady, she puts her surname, what we call her surname, her family name first rather, and her given name last. She'd enter that in the form wrongly. So we'd be calling her that name instead of that name in communications. How do you filter that out? You can't. And as for this lady, it's going to be really hard with a given name, a family name from a father, and a family name from a mother. Where does that go in, first name and last name? And this guy, what does he put? I love his name. I think it's fabulous. So what you need to do is you need to have a form that allows people to put their name, whatever it is. Put your full name in here, one single field, put your full name, and then say, what should we call you? And that way, you avoid a situation where you've got a name and you don't know what to do with it. You've got their full name, so for legal reasons and for things like for their credit card and all that sort of thing, delivery, you've got their name. But if you're going to write to them and say, hi there, whatever your name is, you know what you should call them. And that's really important. So where do you go from here? Where you go is you have a strategy. You evaluate your market. You understand where your market's going to go. You consider your languages, your contexts, the culture. You look at your budget, and then you find a good online partner. Oh, and here's one who knows how to do multilingual, and that's us. Thank you very much for listening, everybody.